Hello and welcome to another edition of our free online coding lessons from Super J Side Business and Services. My name is Jerry Batunde, and in this edition, which is our lesson number 4, we are going to continue with our coding. Don't forget, we started this in the previous edition. In this edition, we are going to go up and increase in whatever thing that we started before. I hope you have not forgotten what we learned in the previous lesson, which is lesson 3. How about we move on to the desktop and then we take a look just as a revision for what we did in the previous lesson. So here I am. I'm going to open another notepad. So here I have another notepad. I hope you have not forgotten. This is just a revision of the hello world. That is the first one that we created. So join me. I'm going to write the code straight from scratch without looking at anything. And I hope by now you should be able to do that also. Okay, and bring a doc type. Did we do doc type? Sure. I believe you are also following. So if I make any mistake, please make sure you direct me also. So I'm going to name it Hello World. I believe by now you know where this title is going to be. And then I'm going to open my body tag, and then inside my body I'm going to say this is a revision of lesson 3. Okay, I'm going to make it a p tag. I think I've made a mistake with the opening tag, so I'm going to correct it over here. And then I'm going to close my body tag, and then I'm going to save this work. Now I'm going to save it because I already have index.html. I'm just going to say revision.html. But don't forget, you always have to show .html. So like this, and then if I get onto my desktop, here I have it. So I'm going to open it from here. Here we are, but there's an error. Okay, over here I forgot to bring the less than. So I'm going to save it again and then refresh my page because the doc type was showing here, and now there's no doc type. If you check here, you see my title showing very nicely here, and every content in the body section is also showing here. So come, I believe you're able to do this because we are heading into it. And shall we begin with lesson number 4? Hello and welcome back to lesson number 4. So in lesson 4, this is what we are going to be looking at. In the previous lesson, I told you that I was going to come back to taking you through the DOM like I promised, and then I'll talk a little bit about the naming conventions which I promised you, and then the header section there are some things like the meta that I promised that I was going to talk to you about very in-depthly in the next lesson. That is this very one. And then finally we will move to HTML component, which is everything that you need to get as a basis when you are studying HTML. So let's get into action. I'll open my slides, and then just as I said, it is slide, if you check from here, I have it here, slide 19 and slide 20. So I'm going to open my slide to slide 19 and then to slide 20. Here we are at slide 19. So over here we are talking about the naming conventions. And then what I said was that in HTML, actually in coding, there are some things that I'm going to talk about, like classes. We have some things called classes. And with classes, we give them names so that we don't forget about it and that we are able to always refer back to them. And so when we are coding and it gets to those times where we have to use our own naming or to assign a particular name to whether an element or anything like that, there are some prescriptions that we normally want to do. You first have to make sure that the name you are going to give is not a keyword. Like in the previous lesson and even in today's lesson at the startup where we were reviewing our previous lesson, we realized that HTML has a tag called head. So you always have to make sure that you are not giving a class name or a user assigned name which is going to be head or body or even HTML. Why are we saying this? Because these are keywords that the language uses. So when we are doing the naming, we don't want to be using keywords or names that are keywords. The first part that I wrote over here is dash names. What is really advisable is that when you are naming it, let's say I want to say I'm going to give a custom name as my very name, Jerry, and then my surname over here. But in this instance, we are saying that it is much advisable to put a dash inside it. Yes, to put a dash inside it. So we call it dash names. And number 2 is camel casing. So with the camel casing, there's no dash, but there's no space. So it goes like this. Small letter like this, and then I start with the other one, but starting with a capital letter. So it goes like this. I believe you can see this and you understand what I'm talking about now. So this is camel casing, and then this one is dash name. I just took this one out. So we first make sure that there are no spaces, and also there's something like consistent capitalization. So let's say I want to write something like, what is your name? What I'm going to do is start with a small letter here, and then for the S I will start with a capital letter, and then for the your I'm going to start with a capital letter, and then for the name I'm also going to start with a capital letter, and then that is it. So this is what we are talking about: no spaces, and then there's consistent capitalization. I believe it was very easy. So as we step in, I will be talking to you about the BIM naming convention. And with the BIM, what we just do is that if we have a very first tag, hero, and then I want to come and put a logo on the hero, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to repeat the main name, class name, which is hero, and then I'll put an underscore, and then without spaces, please, and then put logo. This is going to tell me that this logo is on the hero components or is on the hero section. So that is what the BIM is about. If I want to put something like heading or let's say title, I will say hero underscore title. This is so that whenever I'm reading or somebody is reading my code, it will be very easy for the person to understand that this title is for the hero. Thank you. So let's move on. So the DOM is a short term for Document Object Model. And this helps us to write clean codes. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight. It mostly comes in a tree like I said, so that all pages should follow. It's like me making a plan on the website that I'm going to create. So I create a preamble as to how I want to go with. Back then in kindergarten we were taught the math tree, the number tree or something like that. There's a tree thing like something going like this and like that and like this. That is what I'm talking about. So let's move on. Let me just show you this. Over here, before I create my website, I just do a documentation of my website. So I have the document. So the whole website or the whole web page is considered a document or is called a document. Amazing. And then this document has a root element called HTML. That is why all of our code is inside of the HTML tag, because the HTML is the roots. When we say roots, it means that that is the foundation, or that is where the whole thing is found. And then on our HTML, don't forget that we had number one, the head, and then number two, the body inside of the HTML. If you have forgotten this, visit lesson 3 so that you understand this. Amazing. And then inside of the head, we are adding title and then some other things like the metadata that I spoke of. And then inside of our body, we have a lot of elements, H1, links, and a whole lot of them, which we will be looking into in today's lesson. So all of these ones are a breakdown of everything that I'm going to put into the website that I am going to be creating. And it is amazingly, you just have to do this so that it helps you to keep track of what you are doing. I believe it is very simple that way. So that is all for the DOM. I will be talking about the meta in today's lesson. So in this meta, like I said already, it just gives you additional information about the content of your website. And like I said, it is in the head section, so it is not displayed on your page. For example, you can put the name of the author, the company's name, the name of the software, and the contact information, and a whole lot of them inside. These things putting on your website, on your work, we call them the metadata. They just tell you about the work or the project that you are working on. And so that is amazing. Like this one is one thing that I really want to talk about. The HTTP equiv. This allows you to send additional information to the browser of the HTTP header. Now, let me use this one like this, refresh. When I put a refresh as a metadata on my web page, what happens is that I'm going to give it a duration or a timing. So at whatever time that I assign it, the website is going to refresh itself. So if I say the refresh rate is 5 seconds, every 5 seconds the website is going to refresh itself. And then sometimes you visit a website and they say set cookies and all those kind of cookies. It installs a little bit of function on your browser so that whenever you visit the browser again, your browser knows that you were there on that particular website, and this and that is where you left, and so you continue from there. Once this cookie has not expired, your browser keeps track of whatever thing that you do on that particular website. And so that even explains the expires. So with the expire, we tell it that, okay, this cookie that is saved on the browser, it should expire in 3 days, or maybe it should expire in 5 days, or maybe it should expire in 1 week. So you go this week, and then the browser remembers everything that you did. But after 1 week, because your metadata has expired, the browser doesn't remember it again, and then you have to put everything in once again. We are going to put this line of code inside our already created dummy web page over here, our hello world, and then we will see how this works. Okay, so I'm going to bring this data over here, the metadata. I'm going to put it inside of the header like I've already told you. So the first thing is that, let me just bring it over here. So I will don't worry, don't forget, it also comes with a tag, and the tag is called meta. And so I'm going to first declare a name, and then I'm going to say this one, the name is going to be author. I'm going to talk about the author. And then the next thing that I'm going to look at is the content. So what is the content of this particular name? And the content is going to be my very name. And then the next thing that I can add is maybe the chassis. You realize that we have the attributes over here and the description over here. I didn't talk about it because we have not gotten to attributes and all those things yet, but I will be moving into it very soon. So over here I have one attribute called name. So whatever thing that you want to talk about, like the keywords, is it about the description that you're going to talk about, or you're going to talk about the author, or you're going to talk about viewport? What actually do you want to talk about? That is what goes into the name. And then the next one is the content. So the content is the rare fact about the name that you gave. That is what goes in the content. And then we have the HTTP equif. Okay, so let me just move back again to where I was typing over here. I will just take the slides a little bit forward here so that we can be able to see and then type. So over here I have already declared this one. I'll just leave the chassis out because the chassis is always one. And then I'm going to close my tag over here. Very soon we'll be moving to using an editor. So over here, let's just use this. I'll just go ahead and then save it, and then let's refresh our page. I refresh it like this, and then it looks like nothing happened because it is in the head. And like I said, it is not displayed on your page. So I'll just go here and then view the page source so that we see if it really came. And over here you will realize that the metadata is here on line 4. So it came, it worked. Where we get to a very little bit of complex instances, we will be able to understand why we use the metadata. Okay. Like sometimes somebody will copy your code and then they will open the code. You want to verify if the code is yours. You open the code and you realize that the code has an author's name. You see? So that is what I'm talking about. Let's just move on. I'll add one last one visible one that we can all see. For the author, it is not visible, so we won't see. But let's add another metadata which is visible. I'm going to put HTTP equif, that one. So over here I'll open my meta, and then I'll put the HTTP equif, and then I'm going to put the name as refresh. And then for the content, I'm going to say every 4 seconds. Let me close my meta, and then I'm going to save this code. Now let me open my browser here, and then I will refresh it. You realize that nothing happened, but I want you to check something here. Look on the refresh button. It looks like every 4 seconds the page is refreshing itself. Every 4 seconds. You see? Every 4 seconds the code is refreshing itself. That is why my refresh button is just look at this part. You realize that it blinks every 4 seconds. So that is with the refresh rate. Depending on the website that you are creating, then you would be able to decide whether you need this or not. But before that, let's move on to the next line of item in this lesson number 4. Welcome back. So I'm going to remove the refresh so that my page will not keep refreshing and refreshing. I believe by now you have seen how you are able to write codes with the notepad, but in the consequent ones we can do it all here. Just for me to see indent and the arrangement and how the whole thing goes, we will be starting using an editor. So I will be working with VS Code from this moment on. Here I am with my VS Code. So if you open your VS Code for the first time, you have this. there's something that I want to talk to you about VS Code, and let's move on to the desktop so that I'll show you. Over here we have some tabs over here. When you look here, it says Explorer, and then Search, and Source Control, Run and Debug, and this part, Extension. This is where I want to be showing you something, because we are going to use an extension to do this work. Okay, over here, extension. Amazing. So when I click on my extension, you realize that we have installed and then recommended. So the extensions helps you to write codes quicker or to make your work quicker. And this is the extension that I want you to, if you are using VS Code, this is the extension that I want you to install. Come here to Live Server. It is created by Weekday. So just look for this one, and then because I have already installed, it's saying uninstalled. But for you, you see just one button here and it is installed. So click on it and then install Live Server. Now, what are you going to be using the web server for? The live server is going to be used, you see, this is what we see here. So it is used in running our code every time. And so once we make any changes to our code, the live server automatically runs the changes, refreshes our page, and then we see the changes happening on our browser. That is why it makes it very faster, and I want you to install it. So I have already installed mine. I'm gonna create this time around we are moving in, so I'm gonna create our folder for our work, free coding website here. Okay, and then I'm gonna put our index.html code inside it, because I want to do what we call file structure. We have to ensure that all our codes are at just a single place, so that it will be very easy for us to navigate and to move our work. Now I'm going to change the revision name to index.html, because that is the only index.html file that we'll be using in our code, and I'm going to delete this because I don't really need it. Now I'm just gonna come here, open my VS Code here like I have done here, and then I'll drag my folder into VS Code, so that VS Code will now open my folder, and then it means that every item that I have in the folder will come to VS Code. So when I open here, you see the folder name is here. We can see the folder name here, and then we can also see the index.html file over here. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to open this, click on it, and then it just opens. Now that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to minimize this one. Once I click on this, sidebar will collapse, and then it will expand. Once I click on it, it expands. Once I click on it, it collapses. Once I click on it, it expands. Once I click on it, it collapses. I'm gonna resize this because I want to open my web browser here. So I'm gonna just do this, and then I just choose the web browser so that it opens here. Now I'm gonna close this so that we will open this. I'm gonna click on go live because of the live server that I asked you to install. Now if you don't have live server, or if you are not using VS Code, don't worry, you just have to go back to your folder and then double click on the index.html file to open it. That is if you are not using VS Code. But if you are using VS Code, then just install the live server extension, and then you can just click on go live, and this your code should be opened in the browser for you. That is so simple. So here we are, you can see that it is loading over here, and then once it comes, it is just our code over here. Now for me to show you what I was talking about, look at it here. I'm gonna just duplicate this line 6. Let me just make my code bigger so that you can see. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy this, and then I'll just duplicate it, and quickly we see that I didn't have to refresh my browser. It automatically refreshes the page and then shows me the results. And this is what the live server can do. So let's move on and then learn about the HTML component. Tags are used just to show the start and the end of an HTML element. So the element is just the small packages that tells the browser how to show a particular content on the web page. That is element. And then we show the beginning of the element, that is the start, and the end of the element using the tags. So the tag is just like a marker, just to mark where the beginning is and where the tags ends. And then aside that one, we also have the attribute. The attribute tells you more things about the element. So it gives you the properties of the element. I will say that in my wardrobe I have shirts. And then with this shirt that I have one shirt which is stripe. And even with a stripe, I have a vertical stripe and then a horizontal stripe. And then I have another shirt which is plain. There's no designs in it. And then with that, I have a plain color red. And then I have a plain color blue. I have a whole lot of them. Different colors. And then I have one which is also boxed, or let me say checked. Checked. And then with that one too, I have different colors. So you realize that this shirt is the object, and in HTML it is called element. And then inside of this element we have different attributes, or different properties, or let me say different features of whatever thing that we have, all talking about the same object. So all of these properties are what in HTML we call attributes, and they all talk about the element. So understand this. The attribute talks about the element, and the tags tells you where the element is starting and where the element is ending. If there's any issue with this, just pause the video, rewind, and then listen to it again. Watch it again, because you have to understand this. That's what we are going to be using all throughout. Not just in HTML alone, but in every language that you are going to learn. You are going to understand tags, you are going to see a attribute, you are going to see elements. So please take note of this. Now, I will be also adding some few things, but let's move on. Like I said, all of these things are keywords. So the tags are made up of keywords. So we have lots of keywords in HTML, and we will be looking at some of them. For example, this one here, span, is a keyword. The span here is a keyword. And the element is everything that lies in between the tags. So we have one tag here. This one is the less than, and then we have the greater than. You realize that this one is the opening, because with this one there's no slash, and this one is the close, because with this one there's a slash. And then everything that is inside of this greater than here and this less than here is what we call the element. So there's a tag name here, and there's another tag, good. This one says opening tag, amazing, here. And then we have the closing tag of it here. And then we have everything inside of it, the attribute name, the attribute value, and the element content, all of it in together, we call it the element. I believe you understand this. Sure. So what I'm saying is that we have the opening tag, and then we also have a closing tag, right? And then inside of it, everything that is in between the opening tag and the closing tag is what we call the element. So the element is made up of the attribute name. Let me just type it here, attribute name. So we are going to be talking about the attributes. Like I said, it tells you something about the elements that you are talking about. Okay, so like it is describing the element. Everything that we see inside of the opening tag and the closing tag is what we call attributes. And we realize that with the attributes, we also have the name and the value before the element content comes. But anyways, let's just move on. You will understand more of it. Now, there are two categories of elements. There are just two main categories of elements. And then what are they? The first one is the block element, and the second one is inline element. If we talk about block elements, they are the ones that will add a line break immediately after them, and so it expands to 100% of your width. So it takes 100% width and then it adds a line break. When we talk about line break, it takes you straight onto a new line. That is what we mean by a line break. Let's say this white place is my sheet, or let me just draw a sheet here. And then what I'm saying is that with the block element, they take from here all the way to this place. Because it is adding a line break after it, it is taking you automatically to the next line. So it doesn't give you the chance to write another thing here. No. Once you put a block element over here, it takes the whole of this space. And then if you want to add anything else, it will take you to the next line. So that one is different from the inline element. With the inline element, I can put one element here, and then let's say the element ended here, and then another element will continue from here. Maybe it will also end here, and then another element will continue from here. And then once the space is all used up, then it will go to the next line. So that is the main difference between the inline element and the block element. With the block element, they take the full width, but the inline element, they only take the width that they need. They only take up as much width as necessary. They don't grab everything for themselves like the way the block element does. So we move on to look at some of the examples of the block element and some examples of the inline elements. But for now, let's look at the block level elements. So the first part is the headings. Now this one is a whole class, in fact a full list of headings. Now you are seeing H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. This is what we talk headings, and this is what I said is different from the head tag. In lesson 3 I was saying something that the head is different from the headings, and this is the headings. So the headings is basically used for writing headings, and then if you use the head H1, that is the biggest of them, and then we have the H6, which is the least of them. Please don't go and write H7 because it is not part of the HTML keyword. So if you want to use headings, you can use either H1 all the way to H6, no H7. I beg you. And then we also have the list element. So this is also the full list elements, and these ones are also used for listing your work. Once you start coding, there are some things that you would have to write them in list, and you'll be needing the service of the list element for that. The next thing that we're going to be talking about is some text containers, as well as some other things like the HR, the table, the form elements. All of these ones are block elements, meaning that they will take the full width of your screen. Over here we also have the inline elements. For the inline elements, like I told you, they don't take the full length. So all of these ones, they are just elements that you just use, and they are inline, not taking the full width. Just take note of this page because it has a whole lot of things that we will be dealing with as we move on. So this one is used to make your text italic, to make it bold, underline, strike out, larger, small, subscript and superscript. This one is for line breaking, for font modification, a whole lot of them. In fact this one is a whole suit. Sure. And then when we are dealing with forms, we'll be looking at all of these tags or all of these elements, the input, the select, and then all of these things have various properties also. So let's move on. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about nested elements. Now when we talk about nested elements, the only thing that it means is that we are putting one element inside of another element. We are putting one element inside of another element. That is the definition for the name. That is what we mean when we say nested element. So for instance, we know about the p tag now, which is the paragraph. With the nested element, we now know about the p tag already. So what I'm going to do now for you to understand is to write a p tag over here, and then inside of this p tag, we know that I have to close the p tag, so I'm going to close it over here. And then inside of this p tag, I'm going to open another p tag, which is going to tell you that I'm going to close this inner p tag over here. So this p tag will have a content, and this p tag also has a content. And what we are talking about here is that this p tag is inside of this p tag. I believe you understand this. So this first p tag, this bigger p tag, is the parent of this smaller p tag. Let me use another element to show you. Let's say I have a p tag over here, and then inside of this p tag I can put an image. So the p tag is an element, a paragraph element, and then I can put an image inside of it. So this one is an image, for putting an image, and then I'll close the p tag over here. So you realize that inside of this p, I can have the image inside. So when we have one element inside of another is what we call nested element. That is what we call nesting an element. Thank you. If you have any questions, please again, just link me up in the comment section and I will explain. The next thing we're going to talk about is empty elements. When we say some elements are empty, it means that for them they only have some opening element, and then sometimes they close themselves without any content. So they don't have element content like we saw when we were breaking down the element. And over here I have the BR tag, which is the line break. So this one is the BR tag, which is the line break, and then we also have the HR tag. And these ones, they are self-closing. When we say self-closing, for that one we don't have to write one open here and then maybe closing here. If you say they are self-closing, then it means that once you open it, you just bring a slash and then close it, because they don't have any content. They are not going to take any content, so you can just close it as you open it. That is what empty element means. Amazing. I believe it is very simple, and we are moving on gradually. So now you know about nesting elements, and then you know about empty elements. So for line breaks, let me just do something for you to see. I'm going to open my browser here, and then I'm going to open my code editor also here. I'm going to first, you realize this one, there's a P here and then a P here. There's this small space in here, but if I put an HR tag over here, you realize what happened. So it brings an horizontal line. This HR means horizontal line. And then I'm going to put a BR also. So for these ones, they don't need you to close them because they don't take any element. And then the BR means that give me an empty line. So it has put in an empty line over here. Let me just write some content over here. And then you realize that it is also showing over here. So it is now our BR is just after this content that I've written over here. But because they are self-closing tags, that is why we have closed them immediately after declare or opening them. So we have this one here, and realize that it is working perfectly well. I'll put another HR here so that you just realize what it does. Amazing. So this one is just here, and that's that, and it's amazingly put well. So that is it. Let's move on back onto our slides. So that is all for empty elements. Okay, so let's look at HTML tag. Now, in the previous videos, I have been talking to you about HTML tag, elements, attributes, but now let's look into how to write tags. Because I don't want you to just, it is not like the school theory thing. This one is practical, so let's learn very well whilst we do. So, a tag is always enclosed in angle brackets. This one is angle bracket. So the left and the right. So whenever we are talking about a tag, you will always see them surrounded by angle brackets. So the left angle bracket and the right angle bracket, or the less than and the greater than. Amazing. So the left angle bracket and the right angle bracket. Once you see something written inside or surrounded by angle brackets, then that is a tag. So they normally comes in pairs, like I've already been telling you. We first have the opening, which has no slash, and the closing, which has a slash. So the start one has no slash over here. You have already seen this because we have done our first code. And then the second one has a slash to show that it is a closing or an end tag. So the start and the end tag are what we call the opening tag and the closing tag. There are two different types of tag, like I've already told you. The container element, which has an opening and an ending, and then the empty element, which doesn't have any closing. So it only contains a start tag, and then you can just add a slash to close it. Amazing. And it is just once. So that is it. Container element and empty element. So we have empty tag and container tags. Don't forget it. So two types of tags: container tags and empty tags. I think these things we have already looked at them, the head elements and these ones we have already looked at them. So let's move on. This is where I want you to write down some things, the various tags and what they do. So pause the video and write this down because we are going to be using this. I'm going to go to the next one. Pause the video here, write it down. Pause the video, write it down. And for some of these ones, you see I've written HTML5. These tags with HTML5 only works when you are working in HTML5. And then as we go on, I will be using most of these tags so that you see. And then whilst you are writing it down, if there's any tag that you want to know, maybe I didn't say it in any of the lessons, you please ask me and I'll respond. So make sure that you are taking record of this. Let's move on. Pause the video and then write it down. Pause the video, write it down. I just made all of these things, gathered all of them together for you, just to make some work easier for you. Yeah. So write these things down and then use these things as a dictionary. Let me talk about the semantics. Now, when we talk about these semantics, semantic tags are those tags which comes, and then once you see the tag, you know then what the tag is going to be doing. So like this header, once you see the tag, you know that this one is used for creating headers. When you see this one, you see that it is used for creating a footer. But I can be creating a footer without using this footer tag. Now, don't forget that this one has a h5 tag, which means that this feature was only added in HTML5. So if you have HTML3 or whatever version, that earlier versions that you have, they didn't have this footer tag. But in HTML5, it came with footer tag. So now we can use the footer tag to make footers. And then we have the main, the sections, attributes. Once you see these things, you just know what they are used for. And they all came with HTML5. Aside, mostly used for sidebar. And a whole lot of them, all of them, the semantics mostly came with HTML5. So welcome to HTML attributes. We are looking at what attributes are. So attributes are always specified inside of the start tag. They are always specified inside of the start tag. So once I open my body, before I close it, I have to put all my attributes in here. So this is the opening of my p tag, and if I want to add any attribute, I have to put it here before I close the opening tag. Then I put in my content here before I come and close the p tag. So the attributes are always inside of the starting or the opening tag. Please don't forget about this. The attribute is always inside of the starting tag or the open tag. Good. And then they are always in lowercase. Always in lowercase. Make sure you always write your attribute in lowercase. Amazing. And then we use quotes. We use quotes to show that this one, to write the value of the attribute. In the next slide, possibly I will be talking to you about that. So when you omit the quote, it will produce an error. And for quotes, you can either use the single or the double quote. Now, double quote styles are very common in HTML, but single quote styles can also be used. So mostly we use double quotes, but anyways, you can still use single quotes. The only thing you have to do is that you have to make sure that you don't mess it up. Let me just give you a very nice example over here. Now, when you have a situation where inside of the element, inside of the content, or let's say in the attribute value, you have to use quotation, then there's something that you have to do. The whole value should begin with a double quote, or let me say that if you begin the main value with a double quote, then the part where you need the quotation should have a single quote, and you will not have an issue. But don't use a single quote here, and then come here and then use a single quote inside and then close it with a single quote. It doesn't work like that. It will give you an error. So if you know that your work is going to contain quotes, then start with a double quote, and then from the inside use a single quote, and then on the outside use double quote. I believe you should understand it. Just pause the video, rewind, play it slower, and you should understand it. Now, this is an attribute. I'm giving you an example of an attribute. You tell the attribute name, and then you tell us the attribute value inside of a double quote, but the value and the name is separated by an equal sign. Don't forget about it. Then you can close your opening tag, give your element content, and then close your tag. So open the tag, but don't bring the final bracket. Then write your attribute name followed by an equal sign. Then attribute value, write it inside of a double quotation. Now close your opening tag and then write the element content, then close the element, close the tag. So you can close the element with the closing tag. That is what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you something simple so that you can look at. Over here, I'm going to write something even though you have not learned it. Okay, let me not use border. Now, let me just make this one bigger. You'd realize that I was trying to color this line. I was going to color it red. And what I did was that when I opened my paragraph tag, then I put in my attribute where I gave the attribute name and then an equal sign, and then for the attribute value I surrounded it with a double quote. Then I brought the last angle of my opening tag, now the content of the paragraph, then the closing tag of the paragraph. This is how we write attributes. The first thing that we're going to talk about is comments and paragraph. For paragraph, you have already seen it, so I'm going to write a comment for you to see. And this is the last thing that we are doing in this lesson. Comments they don't show on your page. Comments don't show on your page. So I'm gonna write a comment here. I'll just start with my open bracket, an exclamation, and then 2 hyphens. You see, it already ended it because I'm using a text editor. I'm gonna write, this is a comment, and so it will not show on my web page. If you check over here, it is not showing here. My comment is not showing. So we have this Jerry and it is here, and then we have this is the revision and it is here, but this one is not showing. And you realize that it has been colored in green. Now for those of you using your phones, Notepad, so let me just open this one in Notepad. I'm gonna create a new text with Notepad. I'm not gonna change the name to HTML for now. I'm not gonna change the extension. I'm just gonna I've already copied the code, so I'm gonna paste it here, and now I'm gonna save it. Okay, it is not going to do anything unless I change the extension. And now it says that there are 2 of it, so just replace it for me or give it a number. I'm just opening it now, and then you realize that this same thing is showing here. This same line of code that we wrote in test Notepad is also giving us the same results, just as we did in. Let me bring all of them back to 100. Let me just open this one in a new window, so that I realize that both of them are giving us the same results. Whether I use Notepad or I use VS Code, both of them are giving us the same results. Thank you. Lesson is getting a bit lengthier, and I don't want it to continue that way. So I'm gonna drop this lesson over here. Don't forget that you can pause it and play it as slow as you can. Watch this as many times as you want, so that you can get the best out of it. If you have any questions, don't forget to link me up either on WhatsApp, in the classroom, or on the website. See you in the next lesson. It has been Jerry Obatunde with you once again with the free online coding lessons brought to you by the Super J Side Business and Services. Thank you. God bless you. See you in the next lesson.